What's up guys, my name is Callum, and in today's video I'm going to talk to you guys about getting therapy for the first time, everything you need to know. And coming from the perspective of myself, where I basically just got therapy for the first time for a 3-month period at the end of 2021 for a difficult breakup that I was going through, and got basically just a ton of value from it. But I had never had therapy before that experience, and so myself, I actually went on YouTube like 6 months ago and I looked up basically how does therapy work? Like I had all these questions like what even is therapy? Is it beneficial? Is it something that I can get value out of? How much money does therapy cost? How many sessions of therapy do you do? Do you do like 1 or 2 or 3 sessions, or do you do months of therapy? Does it have to be through Zoom right now because of the pandemic? How do I find a good therapist? I basically had a ton of questions like that, and so I got some value out of watching those videos, and I basically got an immense amount of value after doing therapy. It was completely transformative, and so I just felt inspired to make a video of my own, just giving back. I'm not an expert, it's just coming from the perspective of someone who went through this himself. So if you heard those questions that I was just talking about and you feel like you have those same questions, then you're in the right place. I'm gonna go through and answer that in this video and share a bit of my own experience and my own story, because I feel that it can be really beneficial to hear what other people have been through. So to start things off, the first thing I wanna talk about is, should you be getting therapy? Is therapy right for you? How does therapy work? How do you even get value out of it? And I think that it's important to talk about this because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what therapy is and why you should use it. Something that I hear a lot is people saying like, oh, look, I don't need therapy. I have friends, I have family, I am very vulnerable and open. I talk to my friends about the issues that I'm going through and I get value out of that, so I don't need a therapist. And I would agree that yes, you should talk to your friends, you should talk to your family, you should be open and honest, and you can get immense value out of doing that. And for myself, I went through a really traumatic breakup. I talked to my friends a ton about it. I talked to my family about it. I shared, I was open, I was vulnerable, I wasn't ashamed, and I got a lot of value out of doing that. However, the relationship that you have with a therapist is completely different than that you have with a friend. So with a friend, when you're talking about emotional issues, it's a two-way street. You're sharing, they're sharing, you're receiving, you're vibing, you're going deep but not too deep. It's in a way that is good for both people. But what's cool about the relationship that you have with a therapist, which a lot of people would think this sounds funny, is that it's a financial transaction. And that's actually a good thing, because it allows you to sit down for an hour where you're with a trained professional who's licensed, who's worked with hundreds or maybe even thousands of clients over many years, and they listen to you and focus on everything you're saying intently and provide you feedback, and they're there to help you, and you don't have to hear anything about their story. They're not sharing anything with you. They're solely focused on you, and it's a financial transaction with a licensed professional. So it's so different than chatting with your friends, and the value that you can get out of it is immensely different because it's a third-party perspective. They're not worried about hurting your feelings or not hurting your feelings, and they're able to share the truth with you, which sometimes your friends will do, but it's good to do both. Like, they're both necessary. You should have friends, have family, but if you're going through something very emotionally difficult right now that you're not sure if you can complete on your own, I would definitely recommend therapy. That's exactly what happened to me. Like, I went through this traumatic breakup. I was struggling. I think I got therapy 4 or 5 months after my breakup started or happened. And I just basically realized, I was like, look, I don't think I'm gonna be able to overcome this on my own in a reasonable amount of time. And I realized that, you're the most valuable person in your life. And I realized that, look, I'm going through this traumatic breakup. I'm having these emotional issues surrounding it. And I realized that if I want to have a healthy future relationship or wife or family, it's essential that I handle this now. And for some reason, I feel like God just gave me the idea, like, look, Callum, you need therapy. You need a professional. I even talked to a few friends about this that have had therapy before, and a couple girls, and they were just like, no, therapy is just like, it's not that beneficial. They can't really do that much for you. You probably should have like a coach or something, or maybe do 1 session with this person. But they were kind of dismissive of the idea of therapy. And I'm so thankful that I didn't listen to them and that I went and got therapy. Like, I did listen to them, but I'm glad that I went out and got therapy. And so I did it for 3 months, got a ton of value out of it. So the next question that's going to come up is, how do you find a therapist? How do you get a good therapist? And the first thing that you're going to want to ask yourself is, what type of therapist do you want? What kind of person do you want? So a good place to start is from recommendations from friends or family. If you've had anyone that's made like huge gains from therapy and really likes it, ask them who they worked with. But realize that, even if it's your best friend and you guys vibe on every topic in life, it doesn't mean that the therapist they like is going to be the right therapist for you. So I think that you should always be open-minded to interviewing the therapist and seeing what the situation is and making sure that you get along well with them. For me, I talked to a few male friends and they had therapy and they were like, yeah, my therapist is really good. I can hook you up with them. But I realized that I really wanted a female therapist. I think because for me, I was going through a breakup where I didn't understand the perspective of my ex-girlfriend. I wanted like a female perspective. I wanted like a nurturing kind of feminine energy behind the therapy. And I wanted someone who was a relationship expert. And I wanted someone who would be open and honest with me and that I could feel comfortable sharing, but would also give me the harsh truth of the situation. And that's exactly what I want. So first things first, sit down, write down like what kind of therapist do you want? Are they male or female? Or what is their specialty? What is their energy like? How are you going to relate to them and have a good conversation with them? So go ahead and get clear on what kind of therapist you're looking for. Next thing is either get recommendations or like I did, I started from scratch and I hopped onto Google and I basically searched for therapists in my city. So how therapy works, at least for where I live, is that there's basically these like syndicate companies, these like branded therapy companies, and you can go to their websites and then they'll have many different therapists underneath them, working under them. And you can go and you can look and see, the pictures of the therapist and their profile and their specialties and expertise. So like I talked about at the beginning of the video, there's a lot of different kinds of therapy. And, people will commonly think of like psychotherapy where you lay on the couch and recount your entire lifetime or something like that. I went with cognitive behavioral therapy, and that's the most common thing that you're gonna see out there. It's also shortened to CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. And that's where you can basically start from wherever you're at, like whatever issues you're dealing with right now, you can sit down and start talking with your therapist about them and they can start helping you with them. So that's probably gonna be what you're looking for, but there's also different expertise of the therapist. So like I said, I went with a relationship therapist because I was going through a breakup. And that actually was very key. So if you are going through a breakup, get a relationship therapist because they are very, very experienced with the dynamics of men and women or men and men or whatever your situation is. And they can provide really, really valuable feedback. But there's also therapists that help with difficult life transitions or career issues or family issues or whatever it is. So make sure you get a therapist that has a specialty with what the problem is that you're dealing with. So I went on and I looked and I found like 20 different people, women that I was interested in. I got their names, I wrote down their numbers and stuff, and I went up and I just called all of them and I left them voicemails. And I was just open and honest. I was like, look, my name's Callum. I just went through a hard breakup. I feel like I need therapy. Can you help me out? And over the course of the next few days, I got a ton of calls back, and 95% of them were completely booked. They had no available slots. They were like, I can put you on my wait list. And what I learned is that in 2022 with therapy is that there is a massive shortage of therapists right now because of the pandemic. I think a lot of people are having mental health issues, and maybe there's a lack of therapists working also. I don't really know, but basically there's a big shortage. And so you're gonna run into that a lot where your therapist is gonna be full or not available. And they were like, hey, do you wanna go on the wait list? And I was like, no. I felt like my issue was acute and that I needed help immediately. And that is probably gonna be where most of you guys are at. If you want therapy, you're probably like, I kinda wanna start now. So luckily, I did have a therapist call me back. We did have a great conversation. I would say interview the therapist a little bit, feel out their vibe, make sure that you feel comfortable with who they are. And basically me and this therapist, we both gelled. She was like, I wanna work with you. I was like, I wanna work with you. And she was very full in her schedule, but she was able to find a time slot that worked with me. And like I said, I think I said earlier in the video, it was like the worst possible day in my schedule, the most busy day. And so I think that this is where being like open and honest is so key. So just being vulnerable with the people in your life, your friends and family, just telling them the situation, like, look, I'm struggling, I need therapy. It's nothing to be ashamed of. I'm comfortable making this video. I think that it's a great leadership role that we can get into if we're able to just be honest with everyone in our life about our situation, because it allows them to be honest and it has a bigger impact than we can honestly ever imagine. So I just went to my boss. I was like, look, this is our busiest day, but I really need therapy. And he was like, no worries, bro, I got you. We'll work with your schedule. And so my therapy had to be on Zoom. So because of the pandemic, like this whole therapy group was not doing in-person therapy. And that was honestly an initial turnoff for me. I was kind of worried about that. I was like, man, I don't know about not doing in-person therapy, but I can tell you after doing 3 months of it, I never met my therapist in person, but from doing the therapy through Zoom, I got so much value out of it, and I actually felt very connected to her. It was actually really convenient not having to like leave my work area and just being able to finish work, sit down, do the therapy, close the computer, get back to work. That was really beneficial instead of having to drive and go to an appointment across town or something. So I actually found that Zoom was really helpful. I mean, if you can do therapy in person, I would recommend doing that, but I found that Zoom was actually really beneficial. So I would say start off with trying to find a therapist in your local area, because I think that they'll be able to know the culture of where you live and maybe understand you a little bit better. If you're having trouble finding someone or you want someone cheaper, you can look outside of your area also and do Zoom. Next question is going to be, how much does therapy cost? I've heard it's expensive. How much is it? So for me, in my area, therapy, it was $110 a session. So I did 3 months of therapy, and that comes out to $1,320 of weekly therapy. And you might say, whoa, that's a ton of money. And it is a lot of money, but like I said earlier in the video, you are the most valuable thing that exists in your life. And so I knew that, hey, if I want to have a healthy future relationship and wife and family and all that kind of stuff, it's essential that I handle this now. So I was very comfortable stepping up and spending that $1,320, and it's some of the best money I've ever spent. It was such a good investment, and I think it's important that we, if you really are struggling, figure out a way to pay for it, because it can be so helpful. So that's how much therapy costs. A lot of times therapy is covered by insurance, but I have a very high insurance deductible for my health insurance. I have like a $6,000 deductible, so unless I spend over $6,000, I'm not getting any financial benefit back from my insurance. So I had to pay for it out of pocket, basically. And that's probably gonna be the situation for a lot of you guys. And the last thing I'm gonna talk about is how to get the most out of therapy. How do you get the most value and benefit out of it? The first thing is just making sure that you're prepared, that you take it very seriously, that when your therapy appointment is happening, if you're doing it on Zoom, that you make sure that no one's around, that you're in a safe space where you can speak openly and freely. The next step is to be 100% open, honest, and vulnerable. This is like the biggest point in the whole video, is to be fully honest and transparent. With my therapist, I sat down at the very beginning and said, look, I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. And I said, also, I want you to be 100% honest with me. So I want you to be very vulnerable, or not vulnerable, but to be harsh on me, like to tell me the honest truth as they see it. How therapy works is that we oftentimes have a lot of cognitive distortions if we're going through something emotional or traumatic, where in our human brain we weave together all these complex web of ideas and sometimes lies or basically things that aren't exactly true. And that's where the value of a therapist comes in, because they can see right through that. And that's what my therapist did. Like, I would be speaking with her about, I would be like recounting stories and telling her things, and she would basically hear these like key points throughout what I was saying that I didn't even realize were important. Like I didn't know that those were important key points, but she was able to see that they were, and then she would point them out to me, and she agreed to be honest with me, and she would tell me straight up, no, you're wrong about this, like this is the situation, look at this. She would like draw out these graphs and charts and like show me like the timeline of things, and I'd be like, oh my God, because like, our human brains, we complicate a lot of things unnecessarily. And from my perspective too, when I was speaking with her, oftentimes it's very common when you're talking to someone or telling a story to say something that's maybe a bit of an exaggeration or not exactly true. So I'd always try to stop myself and walk back and say, actually, that wasn't correct, and then try to correct myself and make sure that I'm telling her the truth. So a therapist doesn't fix anything for you. They don't solve your issues. They don't handle the emotional trauma that you have, but they help you. So it's up to you to really step up and to work your hardest with your therapist if you want to get the most gains out of it. While I was on Zoom also, I was taking notes, not a lot, just a tiny amount. So if she would say something that was very potent or that I was kind of blown away by, I would just take a short note. Then after therapy, usually later that day or the next day, I would make sure that I always journaled. So I wrote down everything that I learned from the therapy session, what I thought was the most potent points, and I would write down my own thoughts about it, and sometimes she would give me homework as well. So I think it's really important to journal. Then throughout the week after your therapy appointment, to basically try to integrate what you learned and to think it over and contemplate it and take notes and journal. And that's the way that you really learn to like integrate the process. And for me, it was like 2.5 months in that I had like my final breakthrough, where I really connected the dots and like saw the truth, and like it was like this whole heavy level of just emotional pain that I was holding on to from this traumatic breakup like came up and resolved for me. And so it really happened in like 2.5 months, and then we did a couple more sessions and I wrapped it up within 3 months. To me, I have this huge newfound respect for therapy. If I ever go through a future breakup or have like a family member die or have something just traumatic or difficult happen, or maybe I'm just struggling, I think it's such a beautiful thing to do. I think it's something that you should be proud of and be open about when you talk to other people. And I think that it's something that can really enhance our lives. And like I said, be this just amazing external tool that you take into your self-development tool belt that for me, it just came out of, it was very external. Like I've done all this meditation, all this personal work, have a great relationship with God, but this was like this just amazing external tool that really came in and helped me so much. So guys, I hope that this video was helpful and valuable to you. I would love if you commented below with what you felt about this or what your thoughts were on the video. And I also changed my channel name to Callum Schallenberger, which is my real name. Before I had it as Inspired Improvement, and I should have started with Callum Schallenberger because I think it's better to have someone's real name. Anyways, if you're new to the channel and haven't watched my other videos, check them out. I make videos on self-development, financial stuff, minimalism, spirituality. So if you like those subjects, check out the other videos and consider subscribing. And then also check out my Instagram. I've got it linked below. I post more frequently on there, so follow me there. You can message me. And in 2022, I'm gonna be pumping out a lot of content, so make sure that you are subscribed and stay tuned, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Ciao.